experience in the increment format. He is a very fast player. I think that he's got it in himself to, at the very least, give Magnus a difficult match, and there we go.
And Vidit has an unhappy recent history with Blitz chess. He played in Calcutta. He started the event 6 out of 9, a great first day, but then things just went absolutely wrong for him. He was stumbling down the stretch and he did not finish well. So Vidit, he would like to get out in the early stages on a positive note, and we see the black side of an exchange Spanish. It wasn't Berlin and anti-Berlin, as you call it, but down in this position, black has the bishop pair, but white has the healthier pawn structure.
Yeah, this is a very well-studied line. This has been a frequent guest now for well over a decade at the top level, as we see Carlsen, prophylactic move there, h3, restricting the development of black's bishop. But you normally see this bishop coming out to e6, and you sometimes see the knight dropping back to d7 in order to afford black the opportunity to reinforce the center with f6.
I like the way that Vidit is handling this position and his clock. He is just gaining space on the queen side. He has an extra pawn from the A to the C file. It's a double pawn, sure, but you can throw those pawns into b5 and keep up the initiative there. But what Magnus is doing is saying, I'm going after your bishop pair, and if I take on e6, the healthier pawn structure, that will be nice for white in the long term.
Very rudely asking black a question, do you want to keep your bishop pair, or are you okay giving up this bishop on e6? And now Vidit turns it back at Magnus. Do you want to keep this knight on g5, or do you want to eliminate the bishop on e6? Magnus decides to keep the tension. Vidit has advanced his pawn to a4, also preventing the other knight from accessing this typical b3 square. And finally, we do get a trade on e6, which I think will be followed up either by knight c4 or knight f3.
He goes to the king side. Black should probably play f6. He castles first, but if white plays knight h4 to go to f5, the essential question is, will black play g6 to stop that? That does weaken dark squares in front of the king, or will you just allow the knight to venture into enemy territory?
Knight h4 seems like a pretty low-risk way to pose further questions for black. I do like Vidit's position. I think he's displayed a fantastic understanding of these anti-Berlin lines, and he just needs to continue making small improving moves like h6, maybe even bishop b7 to prevent knight h4. You called it, Robert. b5 continuing to expand on the queen side, and I think the position is at the very least equal. Definitely not worse for black.
b5 is one of those risky moves, though, where you do gain space, but your c6 pawn is a little bit tender now, so you do need to be careful. That said, I like the activity of his pieces. He's staring at the d pawn. He's also staring at the e pawn. So bishop e3, maybe black takes on d4 with the pawn because that e4 pawn is in the queen sides.
And can also meet bishop takes d4 with c5. That's the power of having doubled pawns. You can send one of them forward and then the other one forward. In my bullet chess championship match against Magnus, you go down 3 or 4 points, and in your mind, you try to pep yourself up. You try to say, let's go, let's get some games. But you know deep inside that Magnus is never going to relinquish a lead like that. That's the most debilitating feeling in all of chess. You know what else is debilitating? White's attack on c7 comes from 3 different sources, and Black can't defend that pawn.
And you know what a good move for Black would be? Rook to e2, but he did that move too quickly, which allowed the king to take control of that square. Because if Black could play Rook e2 if the White king were on g1, then White would have to deal with the b2 threat. You wouldn't have time to pick up c7. So unfortunately for Vidit, this is getting quite bad for him. It's a difficult situation, and he's down 2 minutes in the clock.
2 consecutive mistakes. That's all it took. And the position went from clearly better for Black, maybe slightly better for Black, to perhaps now borderline winning for White. Magnus dropping back to c4, reinforcing the d4 pawn. I think Vidit is trying to get his knight around to a6, so he's found a way to defend the c7 pawn. The thing is, Robert, that's not the only problem in Black's position. In fact, that's one of a million problems in Black's position. Both rooks are in danger of getting crushed here. The e4 rook might be the first one to get trapped.
And to some extent, White doesn't even want to win a pawn, because with all these pawns on the board, Black's pieces are completely stuck. So bishop b6 seems to be the only move that I see that saves the day against knight c6, which is a pretty nasty threat. But bishop on b6 attacks c7, it attacks d4. So even if White wants to play knight c6 takes b4, Black does have a counter against White's center.
30 seconds for Vidit. Magnus has kept himself armed with 3 full minutes on the clock. I think he would likely win this with the time situation reversed. Given 3 extra minutes on the clock, I think Vidit's position is utterly hopeless. Bishop b6 is the only move. Otherwise, f3 literally traps the rook, but it doesn't matter. This is a moot point. Game 1 is going to go to Magnus.
What is he considering here? I mean, he's going to lose on time. He's down under 10 seconds. Vidit needs to make a move. Whoa!
c5, but knight c6 resigns. That doesn't solve anything.
I think he just overlooked it. He could still go knight c6. I don't get it.
Take the bishop, and you're up a piece, and you win the game.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Vidit, and another downside of playing rook e2 earlier is the White king had stopped the Black rook from getting the second rank. It is resignation. It is over. Game 1. Magnus Carlsen takes his first lead of the match.